Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, and thank you for your immense patience in putting this together. I'm not the most what's the word? Not the most reliable with reading emails and looking at proofs and things, and Aaron was immensely patient. I'm going to read a few poems from this, not too many. The first one I want to read is called Two Rivers. I lived recently in Aberystwyth for a little while, just up the road from Aaron, and there was an otter that lived down in the harbour there. What you have there is the two rivers. One's the Istwith and one's the Rydal, and they come together. And there's a little harbour, and then it goes out into the sea. And I kept trying to see the otter, and I never did. But I've written this poem for it. Two rivers at the confluence of the Rydal and the Istwith of the Irish Sea. Two rivers. One is pinned at its mouth by a tide, the other insists itself brackishly into the waves. Violence comes and goes. A snowy shiv of spindrift spittle quivers like a tilde above that primal, almost hominid vow which oceans break us with. Below the blare of easy water, heard with a full skull, beyond the grammar of the inner ear. Talk in town says that a yearling otter has made this stretch its home. I dread to think of the beast tonight, somehow colder, wetter than its genes promised. I'm wrong, of course. The drink is its to live in, ours to sink and fear. At this late angle, moonlight warms the crest of each black wave through lengths of matted air, only as sunlight dazzles the cold east of Neptune on the better days of its spring. There's something about here that's not about here. Mars has gone to war tonight. A gang of dolphins leaps in darkness somewhere near. Second poem is another poem, another Aberystwyth poem, a poem written during the deep horrors of that winter lockdown, when we'd moved to the town and knew nobody. It's called Litany. When the room and my bathwater settled at last and our temperature they could both stomach, I knew if I wanted to lose the more miserable parts of an already miserable evening, I needed some air before darkness. So leaving a can which agreed with my bathwater as to the temperature needed to shift my inertia, I set out to breathe in the air before darkness, then pissed out an hour in search of my shoes and concluding I won't give up smoking. It was late, too late, when I picked up the pouch of tobacco whose fumes I imagined would sweeten the air in the air before darkness. And maybe it was for that reason alone that this evening I broke with all habit and turned from the heavier waters that churn up the beach to the finer, more delicate mists that are sweated by waters when they go to town. The difference is less in the state of the matter than some metaphysical slight which to serious tongues tells of too little salt in the air before darkness. Pushing through dusk feathers strewn in the alleyways, seeking St. Michael's, I climbed up the tower and watched myself walk on the beach in the air before darkness, already too steeped in the air before darkness. And when at last I made it home after all of 10 minutes and decades of plausible years, I met myself crossing the threshold and said to myself, "Did you see what I saw in the air before darkness?" "No," I replied. "You'll forget what I've told you, since both of us swore not to speak more than once, can you hear me, of air before darkness." The next poem is a version of, I should check what it is actually. Aaron, could you scroll down a touch so I can check what it is? Yeah, I thought it was that. One Time Pad is a poem I wrote after Gavafi. I'm not wholly sure which Gaddafi poem I was writing after anymore. There are two Gaddafi poems, and I changed the titles of them. Gaddafi being, of course, the wonderful Alexandrian poet of the first part of the last century. He's given me a lot, and I feel slightly awful having changed his title and not being able to give it back. One-time pad. Oh, a one-time pad, by the way, is it's something in sort of spycraft. It's a cipher where you send the way to decode the cipher to someone else. They carry it with them. They find a letter, and then they work out how to do it from that, and then you kind of burn it afterwards. It can only be used once. One-time pad after Gaddafi. He made a poem once, unlike his others. He did not write it down, no need. It was, after all, already made of memory, so tempered to the worldly notes it sung, as if he liked that part. The day-bright earth were a wine glass made to hum under the feather, the eagle's feather, of his spread feathering hand. To give it even the ghost body of word would be to bring his wax too close to the fire, to learn by a method which seemed depressingly French, that the essence of a thing is nothing without its formal particularities, its taste in the head. Better not risk all that. So when he read, he would read other poems. To him it made no odds whether he read for a crowd or to himself, aloud or in his head, or whose name took the credit. They were all unlike the poem that was unlike his others, and which he did not write down. One night, when we were in bed and hadn't fucked for a week, he told me, I don't know why, about the poem. And he told me every word. I have used every word 1,000 times and in 1,000 orders, even today, which is a day on which I did not write. He tells me when we speak, which isn't often, that he cannot remember the poem now, but is happy regardless to know that he perhaps has recited it unawares, while he told me the tale of his latest terrible love. Another version of a language I don't speak now, even less claim to being anything like a translation, but a poem which came out of, it comes out of the Aeneid, if I can find it. Yes, there are two poems out of the Aeneid in this. Only there will be more at some point. This is from Book 2 of the Aeneid. They're fleeing from Troy. Aeneid 1 from Book 2. Mrs. Dalloway said she would gather the limbs of Osiris herself. Someone is always missing, and most of the time it is one of the gods. Ceres, who, since my earliest visions of love, I, who was a pious child, have known to resemble my mother, was not in the place that was holy to her alone when we came looking. It was me who carried the prince, my father's weight, lugged him on my back, cushioned with a lion's hide, so that my labor and his ride were easy. Someone is missing always. I am missing every day the fortunate tide. Retiarius casts his net and is missing. But nothing missing is absent. It is not loss, but the fact that in our misses, we are made by our gods to watch a universe displacing, which upsets us. And the knowledge of what might have been is public, is a kind of humiliation. This is why we ask, why am I here, which is not hypothetical. Fully distilled, it means, why am I not there? It is why I could not leave the house today. It is why I cannot go to bed till I have wished a real good night to real Aeneas in my bronze, among the other glassy shades. But I will speak tonight about what happened when we left Troy at last, and certainly for good. I said that she was missing, but the truth is she was left behind. I had my father on my back, and in my hand our son Ascanius, who was tripping a little ahead of me. I had been up all night, fighting something or other, and we'd said goodbye already, so I thought. They had given me, with certain drugs, to ease our parting, a black flower. I kept it with me, crushed it in my pocket. At midday, as we nursed our pints of bitter, weak enough to gentle us halfway into the future, at a table outside the Bear, I saw, or thought I saw at first, then remembering that the memory that ghosts have been with me a while, knew I saw. Caressa in the sun on Blue Ball Lane. We both knew I'd be there. When I offered her my flower, she did not take it, knowing that then nor now, a decade later, it would not mean a thing once I was sober. And so I tried, knowing she would not kiss me, being vaster than I was and built like a god, to hug her. She held me steady, moving, still, away. So I stood up and tried again to hold her. She held me then, as friends would hold me soon, commiserating. Then, well, third time lucky, I threw myself in the air just where my slow eyes thought she stood. Once they'd picked me up, she was long gone. It is hard to be exiled on the maelstrom of a pint's dregs. Sink, sink, and among that, to last order. Desist, my much-loved lord, to indulge your pain. You bear no more than what the gods ordain. This is my last poem. A London poem, but written before I moved to Wales. And before I moved back to London. Where is it? It's called Thinking Stepped Into Me on Lambeth Bridge. Forgive me, let me find it. My apologies. Yes, there we are. Thinking stepped into me on Lambeth Bridge. And though I had walked for years that night, it wasn't the sort of night that settles the usual questions, being those of love and territory upon the Neuron's cartogram. I did not quarter the citadel into its heavenly quarters. No angels danced in Islington or Peckham. It was a kind of trial, licks of flame, then coals beneath me on the glacial pavement that burned like tinnitus. Do not imagine more emptiness than fell between my steps on Lambeth Bridge. From Lambeth Bridge I turned east, so that I stood across the river from Parliament, sitting very late. There would be news. The lower house was pulsing through its lobbies. I didn't stick around. Get out of here. Get out. Get out. There is, spawned in the low tide, a kind of snake that breathes and spasms while it lies in wait, and winter of some kind to be endured in any case. I went instead to Queenhive and thought of Queen Matilda until dawn.